Well, hello! This video is for Thursday, May 14th. It's our last video class. Some of you are going like this. Some of you are going like this. Mostly, probably you're going like this. I understand. Alright, we're going to do two things today. We're going to review for your test, which is due by Friday. I'm going to post it on Thursday, and you will have to take it and turn it in by Friday. And we'll do that first, and then we'll do the story chart for The Horse and His Boy. Alright, so here we go. Let's go over the comparative and superlative adjectives. Remember, when you're comparing two things, you want to use ER at the end of your adjective. If you're comparing three or more things, you're going to add EST. Okay? Who is taller, Mark or Bob Ross? It's just two things, two people, so we use the ER ending. Which of the 6 horses is the fastest? How many are we comparing? We're comparing 6, so that's more than 2, right? So we have to use the EST ending. Please hand me the shorter of the 2 screwdrivers. You might think you should say, please hand me the shortest of the 2, but the correct way to say this is shorter because you're only comparing 2 things. Which of the 4 books is the longest? Okay, again, there's more than 2, so you use the EST ending. Between Aaron and Alex, who is older? Again, just 2 people, so we're going to use the ER ending. Okay, so be careful with that in your writing, and also you'll know how to do that when you take your test. Okay, contractions. Remember, contractions are made from 2 words that are joined together with an apostrophe. And the apostrophe indicates where there is a missing letter. In this case, weren't is a combination of were and not, and the apostrophe indicates the missing O in the word not. That's is a combination of that and is, and the apostrophe indicates the missing letter I. That's. Can't is a combination of can and not, and the apostrophe indicates the missing O in the word not. And also remember, in the word can't, you also are getting rid of the N in not, because you have an N here in can. So you don't want to write C-A-N-N-O-T, or C-A-N-N apostrophe T. There's just going to be one N. And don't is the combination of do and not, and the apostrophe here indicates the missing letter O. Alright, so he will becomes he'll. He, apostrophe LL. In this case, the apostrophe is standing in for the W and the I. They are becomes their. The apostrophe is standing in for the letter A. Would not becomes wouldn't. The apostrophe is standing in for the letter O in the word not. And she is becomes she's. The apostrophe is taking the place of the letter I in is. Alright, banned word synonyms. Good to know these kinds of words. Instead of using good, you can use tasty or fine, excellent or awesome. And there's many more. Those are just a few. Instead of bad, you could say horrible or poor or awful or rotten. These words are much more expressive than bad. Instead of saying say or said, you could use answered or stated, yelled, complained, exclaimed. Okay, lots of other choices there too. And instead of go and went, you can use traveled, strolled, drove, flew, okay, ran. Lots of options. Don't limit yourself to boring words. Okay, sentence types. The 4 sentence types we've talked about are the interrogative sentences, which ask a question because you're interrogating. You can see that root word there. And always end in a question mark. Will you please close the door? Declarative sentences make a statement, and they always end in a period. My cousin closed the door. Exclamatory sentences express strong feeling and always end in an exclamation mark. Hurry, he's about to close the door. And you always say it with a certain amount of emotion or excitement in your voice when you read it out loud. Imperative sentences give a command, and they usually end in a period. They can end in an exclamation mark, but a period's pretty safe. Close the door. It's just a command. Okay, on your test, you're going to have to create an interrogative sentence, and you're going to have to create and write a declarative sentence. So make sure you use the correct punctuation with those. Okay, a quick review of fanboys. What are fanboys? They are technically called coordinating conjunctions. Fanboys is the acronym that we use to remember the words in this group. Okay, in these group of words join two of the same types of speech. They can join two nouns, two verbs, or even two phrases. So, what are they? Fanboys. Say it with me. Fanboys. For, and, nor, but, or, yet, so. Get a good idea of these. Memorize them. Because on your test, you're going to have to circle them, find them and circle them in a sentence. Like we did last time. I'll just go over those again. They climbed up Mount Trashmore and ran down again. And is your coordinating conjunction. She wanted to finish her project, but couldn't because she was sick. But is your coordinating conjunction. Either Mr. Baxter or Mr. Cooper will be in charge of the food drive. Or is your coordinating conjunction. Or is joining two names, Mr. Baxter, Mr. Cooper. What is and joining? And is joining two verbs, climbed and ran. They climbed up Mount Trashmore and they ran down again. What is the but joining? She wanted to finish her project, but couldn't. Wanted and couldn't. So these are two verbs, and these are two verbs as well. Two nouns here. Michael was feeling hungry, so he made himself a sandwich. Okay, what is so joining? Feeling hungry, and made, two verbs. Okay? Coordinating conjunctions, aka fanboys. Alright, now if you have your TAN book with you and you'd like to follow along, get this out, turn to page, I think it's 120 in your book, and this is review activities for lesson 10. And you probably did these a while ago, but we're going to go over them because they'll be a good review for your test, because some of these things will be on your test. Okay, we've talked about homonyms, which are words that sound the same, but they are spelled differently and they have different meanings and uses. Alright, so in the first one, you're going to choose which one is correct. Okay? I don't know if you can see this or not, but I'll read it to you, or you can follow along in your book. This is review activity 1A. There will be a children's concert this evening. Which there are we going to use? Well, this there is a possessive pronoun, meaning something belongs to somebody. And we're not talking about anything belonging to anybody in this sentence. So the correct answer is this one, there. T-H-E-R-E. B. We will be going to the pottery class soon. Alright, we have a choice of 2 and 2. Which one would you choose? Well, this one means also, or it can also mean more than necessary or wanted. This one is a direction. We're going to the pottery class, so it's going to be this one. C. I will write to my friend in Ireland. Does anybody know anybody in Ireland? I don't think I do, but anyway, what word would you choose here? Right or right? The first right means correct. Like, you got that math problem right. It can also mean direction, like turn to the right as opposed to the left. The second right is what you do with your pen or your pencil. So this is the correct option for this sentence. I'm going to write to my friend in Ireland. D, the bee kept buzzing around her head. Okay, which bee is it? Bee or bee? Okay, this is a state of being. This is a verb. Oops, sorry, shouldn't have underlined that. But this is the correct choice. This is the insect that buzzes around people's heads. E, the inn was already full because of the holiday. Okay, this in is a preposition. It tells you where something is. It's in the box or in the cupboard or in the car. But this in is like a hotel or a motel where people stay overnight. So this would be the correct answer. This is where people would stay, and it might be full on holidays and special days. Okay, those are homonyms. Now let's talk about narrator and point of view and mood. Okay, so in the following paragraph, we want to know who is the narrator. I surveyed all the land before me with a careful and calculated eye, looking for the slightest possible movement. The rustle of a leaf, a shift of a blade of grass, was all that was necessary to lead me to my prey. Suddenly it happened. I detected movement. Quick as a flash, I swooped from my treetop vantage point and clutched a small mouse in my talons. So who is the narrator in this paragraph? Yeah, it's a bird of some sort, maybe a hawk or an eagle. And from what point of view is it told? It is told from first person because it's using the words I and me. Okay? It is all that necessary to lead me to the prey. I detected. I swooped. My talons. That is the character itself telling the story. If it was third person, it would say, he surveyed the land below him with careful and calculating eye, and the rustle of a blade of grass was all that was necessary to lead him to his prey. That would be third person. But the way this paragraph is written, it's in first person point of view. Okay? And the mood is, you might say tense or anticipating or exciting. All right, commas. On this exercise, you're to add commas wherever they might be necessary. So let's look at each sentence. On our summer vacation, we will visit the seashore, climb a mountain, and ride a horse. Okay, here we have three things that need to be divided or separated somewhat so you can pause in the way that you read it so you'll understand it better. On our summer vacation, we will visit the seashore. That's the first thing that they're going to do. Climb a mountain. That's the second thing. And ride a horse. Okay? So you need a comma after the first thing and after the second thing, and then you have your coordinating conjunction, right? All right, B. I looked inside, reached down, and picked up the rabbit. All right, so there's three things that he did, or she. Looked inside, comma, reached down, comma, and picked up the rabbit. Okay, there are three verbs here. Looked, reached, and picked. Okay, and then the previous one, there were three verbs also. Visit, climb, and ride. All right, and again, the coordinating conjunction and. C. For the party, I need to buy balloons, cake decorations, and gifts. So we have three things here that need to be bought. Balloons, comma, cake decorations, comma, and gifts. There's your coordinating conjunction and you have balloons, cake decorations, and gifts. Those are three. What form of speech is that? Those are nouns. Balloons, decorations, and gifts. They're things. All right, D. The bee buzzed, flipped, and dove around the flowers. Okay, what did the bee do? It buzzed. That's the first thing. So we need a comma after that. Flipped, that's the second thing. And dove. Three verbs there, buzzed, flipped, and dove. And coordinating conjunction and. E. My grandparents have visited England, France, and Spain. So we have three places that Grandma and Grandpa went. They went to England, comma, France, comma, and Spain. You don't need a comma after your and, just before it. Okay? And these are proper nouns. F. Bring your lunch, a thermos, and a blanket. So we have three things, these are nouns, that need to be separated by commas. lunch, thermos, and blanket. Okay. The last question on this was, what are the 5 elements of a good plot? Okay, and we're going to be talking about this more in a little bit with our story chart, but they are the opening, the rising action, the climax, the falling action, otherwise known as the denouement, and the end is the conclusion. All right. So I hope you understand all those. Now we're going to go on to the review activities for lesson 11, but before we do that, I want to review with you the spelling tip that says, if you want to make the plural of nouns that end in certain particular letters, like SH, CH, SX, and Z, you're going to add ES to the end of the word. Now, it would be helpful for you to memorize these letters. This is like a tongue twister, though. SH, CH, SX, and Z. SH, CH, SX, and Z. Say it with me. SH, CH, SX, and Z. If you can memorize those combinations of letters, you can remember which words you have to add an ES to when you want to make them plural. Okay? Dish becomes dishes. Birch becomes birches. Glass becomes glasses. Tax becomes taxes. And quiz becomes quizzes. Alright, but what if you have a word that ends in a Y that's preceded by a consonant? Remember, a consonant is any letter that is not a vowel. The vowels are A, E, I, O, and U. The rest of the words are consonants. So if you have a word like that, like penny, it ends in a Y, and it is preceded by a consonant, meaning a consonant comes right before the Y, then you're going to change that Y to an I, and then you're going to add ES. Okay, but be careful, just because you have a word that ends in a Y doesn't mean you add ES, because this word play, the Y is preceded by a vowel, A. So you don't change the Y to I and add ES for this. You just add your ES. You just add your S, plays. Okay, and all other words that don't fall under these rules, you just add an S to the end of the word. Okay? All right. So now we can get to lesson 11, review activities. And I'm not sure what page this is on, but flip over a couple, maybe 127, 128, something like that if you're in your TAN book. Okay. So let's cover up a little bit and do one at a time. Okay, this first one is what we were just talking about. The plural for brush, okay, it ends, brush ends in an SH, right? And that's one of the ones. So for brush, we're going to make it brushes. B-R-U-S-H-E-S. For guess, it ends in an S. Yep, that's one. So we're going to add an ES to that as well. G-U-E-S-S-E-S. Okay, lily. Lily ends in a Y, which is preceded by an L. Is an L a consonant or a vowel? It's a consonant. So it has to follow the Y to I and add ES rule. So this is going to become L-I-L, change the Y to I, and add ES. Lilies. Turkey ends in a Y also, but it is preceded by an E, which is a vowel, so we're not going to change this to an I, only if it was preceded by a consonant like lily. So this will end up being turkeys with just a plain old S. And axe ends in an X, which is one of those key words, so key letters, sorry. It becomes axes. Axes. How many axes do you have? Okay, direct quotations. So you were to add quotation marks and punctuation to the following sentences. The first one says, we will begin the canoe trip at this point, announced Luke, and then paddle downstream to the campgrounds. Okay, so someone's speaking here, right? Announced Luke. Okay, that is the person who's speaking. So we have to begin this with a quotation mark. We will begin the canoe trip at this point, announced Luke. And then he's not finished because he says, and then paddle downstream. So we're not going to put a period here. We're going to put a comma here, and then a quotation mark. Comma first, then quotation mark. Okay, this is what he said. This is coming out of the quotation to say who's speaking. So we have to add a comma here because then we're going to go back to what he's saying. And then paddle downstream to the campgrounds. What kind of punctuation do we need at the end of the sentence? A period. It's not a question. It's not an exclamation. Okay, so we have the speaker identification in the middle of the sentence, announced Luke. So we have to put quotes around the first part of what he said, and then we have to put quotes around the second part of what he said. All right, B. Who is going to the concert? Asked Adam. I will be leaving in an hour. Okay, so again we have the speaker identification in the middle, so we have to put quotes around the first part. Who is going to the concert? Okay, that's a complete sentence. So we're going to put a question mark there and quotation marks after that. Who is going to the concert? Asked Adam. And that is actually the end of the sentence. Okay, if you didn't have anything else there, that would just be the end of the sentence. Who is going to the concert? Asked Adam. You have to have a question mark here, but the end of the entire sentence is after Adam. But he continues speaking, but he's starting a new sentence. So we're going to put quotation marks around before I, and then at the end, I will be leaving in an hour. We're going to end that with a period and closing the quotation marks. C. I do not know the answer to the problem, said Anne. Can you help me? Okay, again, we have the speaker identification in the middle of the quotation. So we have to put quotations around the beginning. I do not know the answer to the problem, said Anna. Where are we? Anna is the end of the sentence, but this is the end of what she's saying. Okay, now she says something else. It's a capital letter here, so we know that this is the beginning of a new sentence. Can you help me is an interrogative sentence, so we're going to put a question mark and our end quotes there. So we have quotes surrounding what she says in the beginning and quotes surrounding what she says at the end. D. The soccer equipment is expensive at this store, remarked Will. Okay, what is Will saying? He's saying the soccer equipment is expensive at this store. And that's all he says. There's nothing else after remarked Will, so we're going to close that off. That's not the end of the sentence. The end of the sentence is here. Okay? The soccer equipment is expensive at this store, remarked Will, is the whole sentence. This is just what he's saying. So it has to be enclosed in quotation marks, and you have to have a comma before the speaker identification. All right. Nikki shouted, "Catch the ball!" Okay, so if someone's shouting, that's an indication that it's an exclamatory sentence. So we're going to put an exclamation mark there. And what did she shout? Or he, she? Catch the ball. Okay? And we need a comma to separate the speaker identification with the actual quote. Okay, we always have a comma to separate the speaker identification from the rest of the quote. Here we have comma said Anne, except when we have a question mark. Sorry. Okay, comma announced Luke. All right, those are quotation marks. Now direct address. We're going to add punctuation to the following sentences. Now remember, when you have a direct address, when you're talking about someone or to someone in your writing, you need to put commas to set off the noun of direct address from the rest of the sentence. Okay, so this time it says, Charlotte, will you please open the door for me? So we're speaking to Charlotte, whoever is saying this, so we're going to put a comma after Charlotte's name. B, I located the bird's nest, Kate, in the old oak tree. Now here we have the noun of direct address in the middle of the sentence. So we have to put a comma before her name and after her name. Okay, it separates the person from the rest of the sentence. Okay, so if you have the noun of direct address in the middle, make sure you put a comma before and after. Explain the bike safety rules to the club, Lewis. All right, so we're talking to Lewis, and we're giving him instructions first, and then we're going to put a comma to separate his name from the rest of the sentence. Okay, so that's direct address. Now, word analogy is the last one. Let's cover these so we can concentrate on just the one at the moment. Okay, remember, analogies are where, do I have the analogies here? No, okay. Remember, analogies are word relationships. Okay, how are black and white related? Do they mean the same thing? Do they mean the opposite thing? Yes, they mean the opposite. Black is opposite of white. So we're going to try to figure out what the opposite of tall is. And that's easy. It's short, right? Okay. So run and sprint. Are they similar or are they different? Okay, they're similar. They're kind of the same thing, running and sprinting. So we need to find a word that is similar to walk. Okay? And you could say stroll, or plod, or amble, anything like that. All right, C is uncle and nephew. How are these two words related? An uncle is the son, is the father of a nephew. An aunt would be the mother of a niece. I don't think I said that right. An uncle has a nephew, and these are both male, so these have to be both female. An aunt has a niece. Okay? Rabbit is to hutch as bird is to what? So what kind of relationship do these two words have? A rabbit lives in a hutch, so a bird lives in a nest. Might live in a birdhouse or a cage, but generally we'll say bird nest. Okay, and the last one is ruler is to measure as spoon is to, okay, what relationship do we see here? A ruler is a tool that is used for measuring, right? So a spoon is a tool that is used for, you could say stirring, you could say eating, okay? These aren't exact answers, but if they're close, that's fine, as long as you get the same relationship. Okay, those are word analogies. And that's all of the review we have for your test. So you can study those review activities some more and the things that we've gone over in the last two videos to help you prepare for your test. So now we're going to do the story chart for The Horse and His Boy, which I have not written yet, but at the top of here you can write the horse and his boy. Okay, so if you want to get your chart out now and write as I go along, that's fine, or you can do it when we're all finished. And this is not going to all fit on my page at one time, but we'll go bit by bit. Okay, so let's talk about the setting first. What is the setting of The Horse and His Boy? Okay, I've showed you the map several times. So you know that it's in the land of Calormen and Archenland. It's a make-believe land. It's not anywhere that's real because it is a fantasy story, right? We've talked about fantasy and how fantasy stories are normally set in make-believe places and times. Could be in the future, the past. This particular book and many fantasy stories are often set in what we would call medieval times. Notice, if you're going to write this on your paper, notice the spelling of medieval. It looks like it should be pronounced medieval, okay? But it's medieval. But you know, they have horses. They don't have cars and trains and trucks. They have swords and shields. They don't have guns for battle and war. Okay, princes and kings and all those things give you the feeling of medieval times. Okay, so that's the setting, and you could even say part of the setting is in Tashbaan, part of it is in the desert, and etc. All right, let's go over to character. And there are, of course, lots of characters. You can't always name all the characters. But the main character, or what we call the protagonist, is Shasta, a.k.a. Kor. We find out later. And Bree, the talking horse that he meets in the beginning of the story. And then we find Aravis, the young girl that is escaping from her country because she doesn't want to marry the old man that her father has chosen for her. Then we have Hwin, which is Aravis's talking horse also. And then, of course, we can't leave out Aslan, as he reappears over and over in the story. Okay, so let's begin at the exposition, or you could say this is called the setting or the opening of the story. In the first chapter, we saw that Shasta is living with Arshish, the poor fisherman, in Calormen. And he meets Bree and decides to escape with him. Okay, that's how it starts out. Then, the rising action is hard because this is where most of the book takes place. So you may or may not be able to fit all of this in your rising action. But this is what I have. Shasta and Bree meet Aravis and Hwin because of Aslan forcing them together. They think they're being chased by lions, but they're actually being introduced to each other by Aslan. Adventures in Tashbaan, including Shasta's time with King Edmund and Queen Susan and meeting Corin and then having to escape and run and go out of the city and find the tombs. Also in Tashbaan we have Aravis with her friend Lazareline and how she helps her to escape, and how in the meantime she hears the important information about Rabadash going to attack Archenland. Then we have their meeting at the tombs and racing across the desert to warn King Lune of Archenland about his impending attack, the impending attack of Rabadash. On the way, they meet the Hermit of the Southern March, who gives them respite or rest and gives Shasta instructions to continue on to warn King Lune. Then we have Shasta meeting Aslan on the Foggy Mountain and learning that Aslan was the one with him all these times. He was with him, chasing him so that they would meet Aravis and Hwin. He was with him at the tombs as the cat who gave him comfort and warmth and scared away the jackals. He was with him when he chased the four of them into the Hermit of the Southern March's enclosure to keep them safe from Rabadash. And he was with him on the mountain and will be with him after that as well. Then we have the reunion with Corin as they get ready to go into battle to fight against Rabidash, who's coming to attack Anvard, which is the capital of Archenland. Okay, so then we get to the climax. Now, you may choose a different climax than I did. I'll tell you that originally I chose Shasta discovering his true identity as the climax. But there isn't much after that that happens in the story. So I changed my climax to defeating Rabidash by the armies of Archenland and Narnia combined because of Shasta's warning. Okay, all this happens, and it's exciting and exciting. Is Rabidash going to come? Is he going to take over? Is he going to defeat them? But no, they defeat him, all because Shasta warned them in time to let them know he was coming. Okay, so after that, we have an appearance of Aslan in the king's castle as they are trying to decide what to do with Rabidash. He himself pronounces judgment on Rabidash and turns him into a donkey. And, of course, remember Rabidash said he would rather endure torture than to be made to look ridiculous. So this is his worst fear come to happen. But eventually he gets sent back to Calormen and Tashbaan, and he becomes a peaceful Tisroc. So that has a good ending. And then for the conclusion, I've chosen that Shasta discovers his true identity, that he is Prince Kor, the heir to the throne of Archenland, and eventually he becomes king, and Shasta and Erebus get married and have a son, and la-di-da, everything's wonderful. So that is the end, the conclusion, as I've chosen it. You may choose to have your events in a little bit different order than I did. That's fine. Okay, let's talk about themes. The Horse and His Boy have many different themes, but I've picked a couple to concentrate on. First is courage versus rashness. Okay, and we see this as an example in Shasta as opposed to Rabidash. Shasta, we see him exhibiting courage in many different times. First of all is when he ran away with Bree, because that's kind of a scary thing to do. He's never been anywhere else and doesn't know what lies ahead of him. The second time is getting out of Tashbaan. He has to, travel through the city and over rooftops and all of that, and go to the tombs, which is a scary thing in itself. Just staying there waiting for Erebus and the horses. And then lastly was, well, not lastly, but the most courageous thing I think he did was to run from the Hermit of the Southern Marches enclosure without arrest or refreshment, to run to the capital of Anvard, which he's never been to before, knowing that Rabidash is on his trail, but to try to beat Rabidash there, to warn King Lune and the Archenlanders of the impending attack. Okay. And so also he showed courage when he went into battle, which he had never done before either. Versus, okay, rashness. Where do we see rashness? And the main place is with Rabidash. He just rashly wants to fly with 200 men to go and take the capital by himself and take the capital of Anvard, or of Archenland, which is Anvard, and then go on to Narnia to take Queen Susan by force. Okay, and that's an example of rashness. So you can see the difference, courage versus rashness. And this also, if you switch pride and folly, he was proud and entered into folly, but Shasta was humble and wise in the way he acted. Okay, also pride and folly we can see with Bree, okay, and how he was kind of a proud warhorse, right? And he thought he was all that, and he ended up being humiliated because he chose not to help Hwin and Erebus when they were being attacked by the lion as they went into the hermit's enclosure. And he felt horrible about that and became very humble after that. And also when he learned about Aslan. The quote from The Hermit of the Southern March is particularly important here, because he tells Bree, when Bree is feeling really down about what he did, he says, as long as you know you're nobody very special, you'll be a very decent sort of horse on the whole. That's on page 161 and 162 of The Horse and His Boy. And he's telling him, just realize that you're not very important, and then you'll be all set to go. And I think we can all learn a lesson from that, of humility and wisdom. The hermit was a character that showed wisdom. Okay, and lastly we have friendship. And we see friendship between Shasta and Bree. They form an instant bond as they decide to leave and escape or run away. What word would you choose, escape or run away? I think they both fit, but escape is more of a positive thing, showing that they are trying to get away from something bad. Run away is more of a negative connotation, but they did that. And then we have the friendship between Shasta and Aravis, which seems very rocky. They don't seem to get along very well, but they end up getting married. And we also have the friendship between Aravis and Lazareline. And even though they're very different, Lazareline is faithful to her friendship with Aravis and helps her to do what she wants to do, even though she wouldn't have chosen the same. She can't understand why Aravis would not want to marry Ahashta, but she helps her to get away regardless. Okay, so those are some of the themes that I saw, and you, like I said, may have different ones, and that's fine. I'll be interested to see if you come up with something different. Okay, and lastly, let's talk about conflict. The conflict in the story, could be many, and I have chosen 4. Man versus man. And we see man versus man with several of the characters' relationships. We see it with Bree and the Tarkin in the very beginning, because Bree, the talking horse, wants to escape and get back to Narnia. We see it between Shasta and Arshish, because Shasta is a slave pretty much to Arshish and he wants to get away. We see it between Aravis and her father, because she does not want to marry the old man that her father has chosen for her. And just because it says man versus man doesn't always mean it is a man. It could be a woman. It could be a talking horse. It's just character versus character, I guess is a better way to say it. And we also see man versus man between Rabidash and Archon and Narnia, and between Rabidash and Queen Susan. That conflict there. Okay, then we have man versus self. And this is mainly seen with Bree, because he ends up realizing that he's not as great as he thought he was, and he changes, and he becomes more humble and sensible and wise because of that. Then we have man versus society, and this is just a person or a character versus the norms of society or the customs of society, or it could be people. But Aravis, we see her rejecting the marriage proposal that her father set up for her, and is probably very normal in her society. She also rejects the pomp and parties and dresses and gossip and all the things that Lazareline likes. So that's her conflict. And lastly, man versus God. We just see constant interaction with Aslan. He is the God or Jesus figure in this book, and he's always working for their good, whether they know it or not. A lot of times they think that something bad is happening, like in the beginning where they were being chased by the lions. They thought the lion was trying to eat them, but in actuality he was just trying to steer them, to steer Shasta and Bree to Aravis and Wynn so that they would come together as a team. So, those are the conflicts that I picked. If you have something different, go ahead and jot it down on your paper, and then I'll look at it. Remember when this says plot here, plot, is just the whole story, okay? So you don't have to write anything special for that. Okay, so that concludes our study of The Horse and His Boy. I hope you guys enjoyed that book. And I hope you'll read some of the other books in the Chronicles of Narnia. I highly recommend them. I think you'll enjoy them too. Maybe summer reading, you know? Okay, so your homework, your last homework assignment from me is to take your final language arts test. Okay? And I would encourage you to review, especially the areas that you feel like you're weak in or need some practice with. And then I'll provide a link and you can download the test and fill it out and submit it back to me. So I wish you well, and I wish you all a wonderful summer. I'm sorry that we couldn't see each other before the end of the year. I'm really sad about that. I've really enjoyed getting to know all of you, and I hope to see you in September at HSP. I'll be looking for you. Y'all take care and be safe. Bye-bye.